Welcome to the After Chat. I'm Michael.
I'm Madison.
And today we are talking about leaving a legacy.
Ooh.
There we go. You ready?
I sure am.
Let's do it.
Welcome to the After Chat. Real questions. Real talk. Real life.
So what's been the highlight of your week so far?
Well, okay. I don't know if this isn't going to start off sounding like a highlight,
Mhm.
but it gets there. I woke up yesterday with a really bad migraine. I don't get migraines often. Well, I guess sort of often. Like, maybe once a month at the most.
That's a fairly regular
At the most.
migraine.
However, I feel like I've gotten into a really good rhythm of knowing what sort of like I can feel it coming on, and I know what can kind of nip them in the bud before they
Yes.
get too bad. And so yesterday I did my routine, whatever, tried to recover from it, and then I got through my day, and I was like, great, I got rid of it, and then it snuck up again on me in the evening, and I was like, no, don't linger. But I listened to my body. I went to bed super early. I did my tricks again to try and get rid of it, and I woke up without anything. So I think it's officially gone, which is my highlight.
Well, there you go.
'Cause I don't function well when I'm in pain of any sort. So
Where do you feel yours the most?
usually lately it's all been right here. Sometimes it's related to my jaw. My jaw can kick it off when I keep my jaw too tight, and then it sort of travels up the back.
Uh-huh.
But yesterday it was all on the side and right here. And I just did when it's more forward, an ice pack always really makes a difference. And I went so many years without realizing that an ice pack could help a headache so much. But man, it helps you breathe there for a little bit.
Yeah.
So
No,
yeah.
like a cool washcloth usually helps me. Mine usually settle right behind my eyes.
Oh,
And
I
so
always get the one eye. I don't ever get double eyes, but I get behind one of them.
no, for me, whenever I get them, which isn't very often, I mean, I go years between them. But whenever I do get them, they're always settled right behind my eyes, and usually a cool washcloth, across my forehead, is very soothing.
Yeah.
And laying in my bed, with everything dim,
Yep.
that is always helpful.
I do dark room. I chug as much water as I can make myself chug. And then if it's earlier in the day, then I'll usually do a pretty strong caffeinated beverage.
Mm-hmm.
And usually iced, so just so I can muscle it down faster, because I'm not wanting to linger with my coffee. But yeah, caffeine, medicine, cold ice pack, dark room. Usually I can kick it, but I was a little nervous last night.
Well, congrats on getting that one,
Thank you.
getting through it.
That's my highlight is that I'm not suffering.
And, well, you know what? Sometimes you got to know where to put that bar.
Yep. What about you?
For me, going to get my oldest a vehicle this weekend. That was very fun. Very much enjoyed that. That was a fun highlight of the week.
Nice. Did you get a good deal?
We did.
Nice.
Was able to get some processing fees and things removed, and found someone, more importantly, that was honest, that you can deal with.
Yeah.
That's always helpful whenever you're purchasing a vehicle. So,
Yeah.
going and getting her a car.
Cool.
And then forcing her to drive it today was fun.
How'd you do?
She did well.
Good.
Yep. No, she did very well.
That's awesome.
So that was a fun highlight.
Nice.
All right. So we're going to be talking about leaving a legacy. So what are you doing today that your future self will thank you for?
So I am trying to lower my overall the daily amount of stress that I carry with me every day. I'm really leaning into that this year as much as I can. Particularly so this is just a random fact about me. When I get really stressed out, I lose my eyelashes.
Really?
It's weird. It's happened to me before. Sometimes I'll also get like dry patches on my eyelids,
Okay.
but specifically I lose my eyelashes. And
They just
usually just one chunk of it. And so it's a thing when you have high cortisol, I don't know if it happens with all hair follicles, but at least your eyelash hair follicles, when you have high cortisol, that hair follicle can just go dormant. And that means you lose your eyelash, but it's still there and it'll come back. So I don't know. I don't know if you'll be able to tell because I have mascara on, but like it's a whole lot lighter over here than it is over here because I've been missing this chunk of eyelashes since I went to go visit my husband after Christmas. So like I lost them late last year. They're still dormant and gone, but they're slowly starting to grow back. So I'm
My
just yeah,
stars.
it's weird. I don't know why my body does it. Maybe I feel my stress in my face more or something. I literally have no idea why, but my body's done that before. I've lost eyelashes in times of like high stress and it's taken a while for them to grow back, but I'm focusing on lowering my overall cortisol level by trying to be at least in a good rhythm of going to sleep and waking up around the same time every day, which is harder for me to do with my work schedule. And I'm also like trying to do lots of movement that is also movement that helps me sort of like release from the day and like calm down and like it's not just I'm in there to work out, but I'm also moving to calm myself, if that makes sense. So I'm hoping future me will really benefit from that, because right now, if I'm being honest, I'm sort of just doing it because I want my eyelashes back.
Well, whatever gets you going at first. Then you'll see the ancillary benefits later.
And I totally thought that I had like ripped them out at first because it's been so long since it's happened, because I will do like false eyelashes sometimes, and I was like, I must have ripped them all off or something, but nope, they just have stayed gone. So
that was going to be my next question. Under what context would you, or in what context would you just be yanking eyelashes? But if you were wearing fake ones,
eyelash glue that's like gone rogue and like settled into your, which that like every once in a while you'll pull off like one or two eyelashes with a set of like false eyelashes, but not a chunk of your eyelashes this big. You would feel it. You would know that happened.
Yeah.
So I just drove myself a little bit too high wired. What is antsy? I don't know what a good word for it is, but I worked myself up too much and lost my eyelashes.
That's I've never heard of such a thing.
Strange.
Well, you know what? Your future self will thank you.
Yeah.
If you go to the mirror and you've got thick, luscious eyelashes.
I usually do. That's like one of the things I've got going for me. So
I love it.
What about you? What are you doing that your future self will thank you for?
So I've been doing intermittent fasting. So that was one of the things that whenever we did our spiritual disciplines things, that was one of the things that we had mentioned, that was one of the things I mentioned in that episode.
Yeah.
That I'd never done before. And so I've been working on that. And so for the past, it's probably been about 3 weeks. So I don't eat after 7 p.m. and then I don't eat again until noon.
Nice.
And so that's been actually pretty cool for a number of different things, for a number of different reasons. So
I heard it's just good for your body.
It has been. Yeah. And so, I have lost weight, which is nice. Like I've almost 10 pounds since I've been doing it. The other thing that's been really cool is I used to just be an absolute menace if I didn't eat breakfast or something really early. And then use that as an excuse for being an absolute menace to everyone that I would come across. And so not using that as an excuse to justify poor behavior has been...
Like you have to be purposeful about it.
Yes.
It's happening every day.
Yes. So, I'm just not going to give into it. Like I'm not just going to be a jerk because I'm hungry, because that's not a good enough reason to be a jerk.
Man.
But I'm not going to lie. As it gets, I literally said this to Madison earlier when I was like, whenever I told her that I was doing this, and
Okay,
it was
before he
close to
actually
noon.
explains it, he's sitting in a meeting going, hungry, hungry. And then you explained what was
I
going
did
on.
because it was getting close to 12, and so I have noticed that like it's almost like a Pavlovian response now.
Yeah.
Like I look at
You
my,
weren't being a jerk. You were just sharing.
I
that
was
you
just
were
like,
hungry.
I am hungry.
Yeah.
Like I am very, very hungry right
Yeah.
now. But no, that's been something that I think my future self will thank me for. One, for the health benefits, and two, just, we don't have to be controlled by our emotions.
Yeah.
Or our feelings, like regardless of our circumstances or what context we find ourselves in, we don't have to be a slave to
Yeah.
those types of things. Like sometimes our feelings, they are what they are, but they're not a justification for acting a certain sort of way. And
That's true.
I know for a fact, because it had been pointed out to me by some folks that I trust, that I was acting like an absolute menace whenever I would get hungry. And I knew that about myself. So
Yeah. Well, cool.
this is something that I'm hoping my future self thanks me for.
My husband has been doing more regular fasting, like for a whole day, but he's doing it more. So some people will do the intermittent fasting, it like with the blocks
Mhm.
of time. He's doing certain days of the week, so like 2 days out of the week he'll fast
Oh.
completely, and then the other 5 he'll eat as normal. And the 2 that he's doing, I could be wrong about this, but he shared, I think he said it was Wednesday and Fridays, because that was like, there's some, historical tie to the early church where they used to fast on those days, but I'm not, I could be wrong. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but he's been really enjoying that too. So it's cool.
No, it's yeah, that first week was really rough.
Yeah.
But I'm finding that I'm not eating as much during that time. Like
Yeah.
I used to be someone that would just roam and pillage and just
Yeah.
kind of snack throughout the day. And it wasn't until I started becoming intentional, I was like, gosh, I just walked around just stuffing my face, literally from the time I got up to the time I went to bed. So yeah.
Well, cool.
Yes. So what's a moment or decision in your life that you think shaped your legacy the most?
So I think it was deciding to step taking little steps towards working in full-time ministry. I feel like that's kind of what will hopefully be, you know, the main thing that I'm known for, amongst my coworkers and my peers, is that I am supposed to be here in full-time ministry. So that is going to be part of my legacy. God hasn't told me otherwise yet, so I'm going to continue with what I'm doing. But the small steps along the way to get closer to career ministry, not only did God really reveal his ability to have a plan greater than mine to me, and also just his provision and timing. But there was a season where I was interning, and the hours that I needed to intern here at PCC were really conflicting with my full-time hours at the place that I was working. So I had so much leave that I basically went to my boss and I said, hey, can I just use my leave to take to work significantly less hours than 40 hours a week to be able to do this. And in that narrow window of it went for quite a few months, and in the narrow window where I was starting to run out of leave that I could use to take off, I had a job offer to work here full time. So that
Love it.
that little step, there were a lot of other little decisions along the way that brought me in, but trusting God in that season, I think really shaped my legacy as far as career ministry goes.
Did you recognize God at work in that moment when that kind of happened? Or was it something that you noticed later down the road?
It was absolutely like while it was happening, because I was watching it. I was watching the number of hours that I had available dwindle down, and thinking through, okay, if I don't have an answer by this time, I'm going to have to give this portion of it up, or I'm going to have to quit and get another job to be able to maintain what I'm doing here. So I was biting my fingernails nervously, like waiting the whole time for something to happen. But it felt like a big learning process as far as like trusting God even when it didn't seem like there was going to be something pop up. It just kind of like cemented that, hey, he's got it. You don't have to have all the details figured out.
Love that.
Yeah.
That's the first time I've heard that story. That's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, pretty cool.
For me, a big moment or decision would probably be whenever I first made the decision to join KidMin upstairs here at the Powhatan campus, because that was the first time where I really submitted like my own personal preferences to the Lord. Like I hadn't been a follower of Jesus for very long, and I got invited to join that team up there, and because I had been coming here and bringing my girls here for a few months and got invited to join that team. And it was at a point in my life where I knew that I loved my children.
Yeah.
But I didn't like anybody else's children. Like I was one of those kind of people.
I thank God every day that he didn't call me to children's ministry.
But I started doing it, and then I just absolutely loved it and thought it was awesome. Like I thought it was so
really
cool. And then that led to me having coaching opportunities in the local softball rec league here, and working with kids, and then working with high schoolers, and then like growing in my leadership capabilities and joining the board that governs all of that stuff. And then that was the catalyst for so many things. And it was that first time I just said yes to joining the KidMin team. And so that when I look back at my time here at this church and my walk with the Lord, that is one that you can see was a pivot point.
Man.
To all sorts of other things.
That's cool.
So yes, that was fun. That was a very cool season in my life back then.
I mean, it gets me thinking about Mega Camp coming up here, and I'm excited to get involved with Mega Camp.
All right, so we're going to be talking about leaving a legacy here, and so to kind of set us up and get us ready for this conversation, check out this message clip from Pastor Brian Hughes.
And Jesus used this moment to define the ultimate legacy, one that was not just for Peter, but for you and for me. When Jesus said, I tell you that you're Peter, and on this rock I'll build my church, this is really something that Jesus is saying to you and me. And this is part of what I had not seen before. Jesus refers to the church that he will build, and he's not talking about brick and mortar. He's not referring to a service time or a location or an online address where you can watch on demand from your living room in your pajamas. He's talking about a movement, a world-changing divine wave that would invite every person to a better life, a more fulfilling life, a life that would ultimately not end in death, but eternity. You want a legacy? There's no legacy with a greater impact than helping the world know and follow Jesus. There's no legacy with a longer shelf life than eternity. So when Jesus says, I tell you that you're Peter, and on this rock I will build this ultimate legacy movement, this is really a play on words, because the name Peter, it means rock already. Peter means rock. So he's saying, I tell you that you're the rock, and on this rock I'll build my church. But Jesus isn't being cute. He's speaking in code to you and me. Who is the rock? Not just Peter, but those who share the qualities that Peter had. What Jesus was saying that day is this: for my message, for this thing that I'm bringing to the world to have its fullest impact, for the movement I'm creating to reach the zenith of its potential, for the reality of God's love for the world to reach every person in the world, the church must be built on people with the same qualities that Peter had. 3 qualities, to be exact. Absolute confidence in the reality of Jesus. Absolute commitment to the teachings of Jesus. And absolute conviction about the mission of Jesus.
I love what Brian said right there. Absolute confidence in the reality of Jesus, absolute commitment to the teachings of Jesus, and absolute conviction about the mission of Jesus. Those are ways. If you stay locked in on those three things, you will leave a legacy. And so, and it also helps us to recognize that our faith isn't just about us. It's about bringing others along with us. And we see that relationship really between Elijah and Elisha.
Yeah.
Names are very similar.
Yes.
It's easy to get tongue-tied whenever you're talking about them, but Elijah mentored Elisha, and we're going to look a little bit at that mentor-mentee relationship here.
Yeah, so I think I love looking at their dynamics. I feel like that was the main story in the Old Testament that I just really grew up with, solidifying the idea of like you should be surrounded by people who are older and wiser than you, that know what they're doing, because you will be able to learn from them. And I thought it was interesting, particularly that last point that was made about absolute conviction about the mission of Jesus, just focusing on the mission of Jesus being go out and get people, disciple them, help them grow their faith. I feel like we can really see it in their relationship as well. Not just how Elijah helps shape Elisha's faith, but how he gives him, brings him up practically as far as like how to participate in ministry.
Yeah, and if you're going to be helping other people, I mean, that's one of the things that small groups are designed to do is, you're going to surround yourself with people that are on the same path and are committed to walking the same type of path. And some people that can say, hey, like, have you considered this? Have you thought about this? Like, all of that is a natural, I mean, that's kind of like a group mentorship. Like, we're all just going to figure it out and do this together. Hopefully you have a leader, like a good small group leader who is a spiritually mature person that can speak into a whole host of different things. But, we're not meant to do this alone. Yeah. Like, we're meant, like, by definition, like, go out and make disciples. Okay, that's gonna put you in community and with relationship with others. And so,
So while we dive into the story of Elijah and Elisha, this is going to be a two-parter. So we're really focusing on Elijah today. He was the one who he was a prophet for the nation of Israel. He's established in his, for lack of a better word for it, career as a prophet for the nation, and he brings Elisha into the fold. So I'm going to read, picking up in 1 Kings 19, verse 19. So Elijah went there and found Elisha, son of Shaphat. He was plowing with 12 yoke of oxen, and he himself was driving the 12th pair. Elijah went up to him and threw his cloak around him. So Elisha then left his oxen and ran after Elijah. "Let me kiss my father and mother goodbye," he said, "and then I will come with you." "Go back," Elijah replied. "What have I done to you?" So Elisha left him and went back. He took his yoke of oxen and slaughtered them. He burned the plowing equipment to cook the meat and gave it to the people, and they ate. Then he set out to follow Elijah and became his servant. So he's all in. Yeah, he is all in. So this is sort of right after Elijah has this dramatic encounter with God on Mount Horeb, which I feel like pretty recently we've talked about. Yes. Oh, it was our burnout episode. We talked about
because he was burned out up there.
So he's struggling. Elijah is struggling in his career as a prophet. He has this moment with God within his burnout where he is moving from one place to another. He can't find God. He can't hear from God, and then he slows down and he hears God through a still small voice. So this is after that happens, and God tells him to anoint Elisha as prophet in training. And if you're listening along and you maybe aren't seeing the scriptures by watching through video, the differentiating thing between their names, Elijah is J, so it's Elijah. He's first. Elisha, Elisha, is second. And I'm going to really try to overemphasize the difference between the names so that we don't lose anyone. But if you're curious, that's who is who if you're listening on audio.
Yes.
So God tells Elijah to anoint Elisha as prophet in training. So Elijah walks up to him while he's plowing with 12 yoke of oxen, and without a word, he just throws his cloak over him. And I think it's kind of funny because I feel like this is basically like saying tag you're it. Like
Yes.
that's a big moment that happens between the two of them. And Elisha understands. He gets the message. And in response, he basically completely blows up his previous life. He slaughters his oxen, burns his plow, it gives the meat out to other people, says goodbye to his parents, and then he follows. So this is written in a way where it seems like this happened really quickly, but he's all in, completely all in. So we can see here that there's not necessarily a need for like this formal orientation of like, hello, I am Elijah. I would like to train you and build you up. He just hears from God. He follows. The other guy gets it, and he's all in. So he doesn't just follow Elijah. He begins to serve him, and
Yes.
there's not a whole lot that he's really doing right now. He's not performing miracles yet. He's just learning. He's focused on watching, helping Elijah. He's probably doing some of the classic intern tasks, like making coffee. I don't know what would be the coffee version of internship in the Old Testament, like gathering food, making the campfire,
Yes.
setting up the bed rolls for the night or something like that. That's what he's
doing
sort of
menial
heading up.
tasks
Yeah.
and learning.
Yes. So it's a fun fact about this portion of their story is that in 2 Kings 3 verse 11, Elisha is remembered as the one who used to pour water on the hands of Elijah. So in modern terms, Elisha was like basically showing that he carried the towel before he carried the mantle. Like he participated before he had the full role on like the full role that he needed to take over once Elisha was gone.
And like you think of it in like whenever you're watching like a show that has like political intrigue or something like that. I remember when this kid used to get our coffee, and now he's running the show.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, it's kind of like that.
He's going from a similar relationship. I feel like you could relate it to also in the Old Testament would be like Eli and Samuel of like,
yes.
Basically Elijah is just teaching Elisha through these moments that everything goes back to your relationship with God and that knowing that you are connected to him is all you need to rely on. So we can see in this dynamic that Elisha is like, that takes some humility to be willing to just have somebody roll up, say, hey, you're coming with me, to be okay with it, to know that God is moving in your life and blowing up what you've done before, to start on this new path, and then to start on the new path doing menial tasks that aren't the big moment for you. You can just really see he's embracing humility and he's learning by doing life alongside Elijah. And I feel like that's something that we can really learn from. It doesn't often look like a grand job title, a grand job description. Really, sometimes it's not even really like clear-cut terms of like, I am mentoring you, I am being mentored by you. Sometimes it just comes up naturally through doing life together.
Yes, like it's a very relational thing. And whenever you read it, it comes across like Elijah just comes out of the tree line, like carrying a cloak.
Yep.
But Elijah would have been well known, especially if you read like some of the stuff that just preceded this. He had this big showdown with all of these prophets where, he was kind of sassing and smack talking. Like we in a smack talk episode that we did way back in the day, like we mentioned Elijah doing that, like, where's your God? Maybe you need to shout louder. Maybe he's asleep. And then he calls down fire from the Lord, and it happens and burns up a completely soaked altar. And then he slays all these prophets of Baal, and then a death a bounty gets put out on Elijah. He runs up to the mountains and he's hiding out and he's burned out. He's like, my gosh, I just did this awesome thing. And then, so he would have been a famous, well-known dude. Like that word would have gotten around.
Yeah. Which, like, I don't know how back in the day before, like, photographs and technology and stuff, like, how would you know who the person was if you hadn't seen them up close? Like, how would you recognize him? So maybe, I don't know, maybe he was, like, up close in the crowd and saw him, or maybe God spoke to him when Elijah was, like, barreling in with the cloak, and he's like, I'm not quite sure. I'm curious
No,
how
I am
he
too.
knew, but we at least know Elijah was well known, and that is how that would have been how Elisha knew to respond. But I don't know. There's some details there that I'm curious about.
So, all right. So next we're going to look at, so they've been doing this together for a while. They've been going around. And so now we're going to flash forward a little bit to 2 Kings 2, 1 through 10. I'm not going to read it, but this is kind of like Elijah's final lap before being taken up to heaven. And he visits some different prophetic schools in Gilgal and Bethel and Jericho, which that's now back up and running, and along the Jordan. And at each stop, he tells Elisha to stay here. And Elisha's like, no way, dude. Like, I'm not leaving without you. Like, we're in it together. I'm your ride or die. This is it. And at every single one of the stop, the local prophets kind of say something like, did you know your master is being taken today? Like, so something, the Spirit is working in all of these places. And even Elisha knows that the time is getting ready to come. And he's like, yes, I know, be quiet. Like, that's kind of 2 Kings 2, 3, and 5. Like, he's like, I don't want to hear it. He's not ready for Elijah to go yet. And anytime you're being a mentor to somebody and you can kind of sense it's coming, like that particular phase is coming to an end. You're not ready for it because you're kind of, you've gotten used to it. It's much more comfortable. You're much more comfortable having somebody behind you. Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of thinking about how I'm going through this driving phase with my daughter now.
Oh yeah.
Like, she doesn't really want to drive unless I'm in the car with her. Yeah. And so you kind of see it in things like that. And Elijah is given Elisha the chance to walk away. But Elisha proves his commitment and determination and to receive all that his mentor has to offer. I mean, you can either stay here and you can do, you can kind of post up here and start doing your own thing. And he's like, no way. Like, I'm in it. Like, I'm committed. I haven't learned everything that you have to teach me yet.
That's good.
And so you always got to be ready. I think Elijah, what he knew here was that you always have to give them the opportunity to either stick with you or strike out on their own.
That's good stuff. I like that. If we continue down in this dynamic, this mentor-mentee dynamic, we can see in 2 Kings 2, just a little bit further on in that chapter, in verse 9, we can see that Elijah asks, "What do you want from me before I'm taken?" So this is kind of like, hey, push comes to shove, like Elijah's about to be gone, and he's making Elisha so not face the music in a bad way, just like face the music as far like, who do you want to be apart from if I'm not around? And Elisha doesn't hesitate. He answers with, "Let me inherit a double portion of your spirit." And it wasn't out of greediness. It was a request, a genuine request to be Elijah's rightful spiritual successor and to be the next one in line as a prophet to guide and be the voice of God for the nation, because God is speaking through these prophets to his people. So it's an important job. And he's saying, not only am I willing to do it, but I want a double portion of what you do. And so Elijah, who is very often a drama queen in a great way, I love it, he replies that you've asked a hard thing. He's telling Elisha, like, hey, I hear you, but that's really hard. And I sort of like read into this him kind of prompting Elisha, like, hey,
think about it.
You've been here, you've seen how hard this is. Like, Elijah has seen fire from heaven. He's received a ton of death threats. He's gone through portions of time in the wilderness where he's been alone and burnt out and terrified. And yes, God has provided, but he is still living a hard life. So I think it's cool that in here, at least you can see Elijah allowing space for Elisha to dream big, and he's giving him a reality check, but he's also stepping aside because he knows, hey, Elisha's serious about this. Like
Yeah.
he wants this, and I am not going to stop him from pursuing his future as my spiritual successor.
Also kind of look at it whenever I read it, getting ready for this. There was something that kind of jumped out that I hadn't really noticed before, but it almost kind of read, if I'm going to do what you're doing, I'm going to need twice what you have. like for me to actually live up to.
That's interesting. I hadn't read that perspective into it before, but yeah.
I mean, and there's also the cultural things, the firstborn or whoever was going to be the firstborn son always got more inheritance than the rest of them. So I mean, that's kind of in there too.
Yeah.
But or maybe I'm just projecting something on there. Like I don't know. But
I've always read it as Elisha just being really eager. But I could also totally see that as like a reality check for him of like, oh, whoa, this takes a lot.
Yes.
And I'm gonna need to rely on God in a way that I maybe haven't had to rely on God in that dramatic of a way before to make it through this calling. Like I could see it. I could see that for sure. That's interesting.
And then this one's a lot of people are familiar with this, even if they don't really know the overall story very well, but the chariot of fire. So
Cool.
This is 2 Kings 2:11 through 14. It happens in there where suddenly a chariot of fire and horses of fire appear and separate the two. It's like a full-on beam me up kind of deal. And Elijah is taken into heaven in a whirlwind.
Crazy.
Just bananas. The only other person that really kind of did that was Enoch. We don't really know the way that it happened, but he just walked with the Lord, and then that was it. He just kind of went away.
He just walked all the way out.
So yeah, and so Elisha cries out, my father, not my boss, not my teacher, but my father. And then in true Old Testament fashion, tears his clothes in grief, and picks up Elijah's cloak.
Man.
And fully took it on. And then he did like kind of a first test. Can he do what Elijah did?
Man.
And he struck the Jordan River with the cloak and says, where now is the Lord, the God of Elijah? And boom,
man,
it parts.
Crazy.
Like, he can do what Elijah did. Like I love that, because it wasn't like in some, a whole spectacle, like everybody wasn't around. He kind of wanted just to see if he had it.
Yeah.
Like, do I actually have this? And I imagine that was a very bittersweet moment, because like whenever I picture that, I imagine him thinking, I wish Elijah was here to see this.
Yeah.
Like, I'm doing it.
Yeah, which is like a really bittersweet thought of like, yay, Elisha, for like keeping on trucking and in the middle of your grief, but also a little bittersweet that Elijah wasn't around to see him take on the next stage. We're gonna continue to talk in the part 2 of this episode about how Elisha continues to carry the mantle. That's a phrase that I grew up in, growing up in church. When you carry the mantle of something, is you're taking it from somebody and you're continuing on with it. I don't know if this story in particular is exactly where the popularity of the phrase comes from. I'm assuming it is, but I just know I'm carrying the mantle from like church world. So I'm kind of curious about how it's spread out as far as like pop culture. But we're going to continue on with this story eventually, but for right now, we're going to kind of shift into really focusing on the mentor side of things. What is it like to be in Elijah's shoes as a mentor? So I'm just curious if you would be willing to share what situations have you been in before where you have gotten to show up as a mentor?
So we have there's a phrase that you might hear around here if you spend any time at our church. It's like, who's your ready now
Mm.
or ready in 6 months, or who is somebody that could potentially take on your role
Mm.
if you are called somewhere else, or like it's like a shorthand of like, who are you pouring into, who are you mentoring?
Yeah.
So yes, so whenever I first went out to the ALEC campus, I had some folks that I poured into on the reg. I was very intentional with that. We would have a regular, if I get hit by a bus conversations, like, these are all the things you need to know. These are all the things I would like to see you doing, because if something were to happen to me, tag you're it. And
Yeah.
that was nice, because I knew who that person was after my first 3 or 4 months there.
Yeah.
And then in my new role out at the campus I'm at now, I had to wait for a long time for that person to present themselves.
Yeah.
And there were many times where I prayed for that person, like,
Mhm.
to God, who is it? Because
Yeah.
it can't be. And it's sometimes, and I think to Elijah, he's kind of lonely
Yeah.
before God sends him and tells him is specifically who that person is, and you can read that in the preceding chapters. He was a lonely guy. He didn't have anybody.
Yeah.
And God told him, "Hey, here's your person."
Mm.
And ministry, all roles in ministry can be lonely at times, and it's nice whenever you feel like you have a partner in it,
Yeah.
where you're not shouldering it alone. And so, in those things, like in the season that I'm in now with the person that I'm mentoring, it's okay, like, here are things I would like to see you doing, and
Mhm.
here are some skills that I see where you could improve that will help you if you ever find yourself in this particular seat. So this
Yeah.
person has a reading list that they are working through, and then I give them stretch assignments to help, one, to force them to go into areas where they are a little uncomfortable, because
Yeah.
in ministry you are going to regularly find yourself in situations and conversations where you're a little uncomfortable. um and then I also set this person up to be seen at the campus as not just the role that they're in, but as a leader of the larger church.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how it's looked in vocational ministry. And then in the softball world, it was teaching other people how to coach.
Mm.
Whenever we would have new coaches come on, I would work with them, help them come up with lessons plans, like, to really set themselves up for success, and not just for them to grow as a coach, but also for the girls that they were coaching.
Mm.
So it's looked different depending upon the setting, but the general approach is kind of the same.
Nice. Man.
What about you?
So, I feel like I'm sort of just now coming into the stage of life where I feel like I have myself pulled together enough to be a mentor. Like, you got to grow up a little bit and be the mentee for a while before you can
Yes.
switch roles there. So right now, or what it has looked like, and it has been growing from, like, as I go, about 4 years ago, I started serving in students here at our Powhatan campus. And I don't know if all of our campuses do it, but at least at the Powhatan campus, we have small groups with our students.
Mm-hmm.
And throughout the school year, you're with the same kids in the same age group. And then the next school year, you age up with them. So I've been with generally the same group of kids now for 4 years, and I've gotten to see them grow up a lot. I've gotten to see how their just behavior in small group settings has changed as they've gotten older, and also speak into their faith journey a little bit as they go. So it's more like it's more like practicing mentoring, because it's not like it's not like a one-on-one situation with
Yes.
someone, but I get the routine of they're under my wing. Like these are my kids, and I've got them, and I'm pushing myself to be as good of a small group leader as I can, or connect with them in a way that I haven't connected with them before. So I'm really just in practice phase right now.
No, small group leading is a great place
yeah.
to experiment. That sounds weird to say it like that, but it's a good place to practice.
Stretch yourself to do
And
something you haven't
learn
done
how to
before.
listen, learn how to direct people towards scripture, learn how to
Yes.
teach people how to go to God in prayer and make their
Yes.
faith their own. Like,
Yeah, which like here at least here at PCC, like we make it really easy for student leaders in particular. Like
Mhm.
I've never been flying blind. I have like a list of follow-up questions from the message that they just watched that I get to guide them through a conversation. And there's other leaders with me, so I'm never by myself. But something that I've gotten really comfortable doing throughout the past 4 years is going off script, like
Mhm.
which we're encouraged to do, like, abandon the question guide if you need to, and really like push into like, hey, this small group is no one's responding tonight. Like, what's going on? Let's figure out where everybody's at. Let's recenter ourselves in a different way. So kind of like reading the room. I'm getting a little bit better at that.
Yes.
And I think it's also really cool because now I'm bringing some of this with me into a new phase of I've had a couple interns as part of our intern program come through and help support me in the role that I'm doing, and I'm getting to take the lessons that I've learned leading kids in student small group and apply them to interns in a way that is a little bit more one-on-one focused than I have ever
Yes.
experienced before. So that's kind of my current my background to my current as far as like heading in the direction on the road towards being a great mentor one day. I'm getting used to it as I go.
No, and the ministry coach role
Yeah.
in the internship program is a great way
Yeah.
to do that. And I'm the internship director here at PCC. And so I've gotten to coach Madison in her ministry coach role. And I was really excited whenever you said yes to that, because that is a cool opportunity.
Yeah, it's really fun.
For people on our staff to really learn what it is to
Yeah.
pour into somebody and to help them
Yeah.
grow. One of our Ephesians 4:11-13, the role of pastors is to train and equip the saints for their role in ministry. And
Yeah.
that is how you help disciple people, is by, hey, like, because God has a calling for every single person's life. And Elijah got that straight from the Lord for Elisha.
Yeah.
And then spent that whole time together training and equipping him
Yeah.
to do that role. And so that's something for every follower of Jesus.
Yeah.
To get to experience. And if you don't, you're missing out on something really cool.
Oh yeah. It is also it's a little bit of a cool like full circle moment for me. Like I'm not super young at this point. I don't know how old I am. 28. I think
I
I'm
will
28.
pull it up in the database.
I was born in 96. I think I'm 28. I think I'm turning 29 in October. Anyways, so I'm not like super young anymore. But I'm still getting out of my 20s in a way where I feel like you don't necessarily see yourself as someone who can mentor people in your early 20s, but like the full circle moment of actually like, hey, I can, and I'm doing it, and I have been doing it for a
Yes.
while, and I was receiving it as an intern, and now I get to full circle also pass it along to other interns. It's just been a cool process.
Oh, and if you're working with students, you are 28, just to
Yes,
confirm it.
I
I
got it
pulled it
right.
up on the database.
Thank you.
But whenever you do that with students, you're doing the exact same thing.
Yeah.
You're telling them, hey, follow me as I follow the Lord.
Yeah.
And it's just wherever you happen to be. If you
Mhm.
take someone else that's coming into, to use the internship example, someone that's coming into the worship arts realm, hey, come along with me and follow me as I follow the Lord, and I'll train you to do whatever it is I'm doing here.
Yeah.
And I just want to beat this point home for a moment. You are really, as a follower of Jesus, you are really missing out, because there is something incredibly rewarding when you watch someone that you've been working with absolutely nail what it is that they've been trying to do.
Yeah.
It makes you just gleam with joy.
Yeah.
And so, and that's something that we're all called to do. Like whether it be, for me, it was serving with kids and now working with adults in the same way. And, every single person has a calling that God has gifted them or called them to do. And you have an opportunity to help come alongside them and do that.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. So you're missing out on something that is incredibly crucial to your spiritual journey. And if you really are, what was it from the message? If you have absolute conviction about the mission of Jesus, that is what it's all about. Yep. He said to go forth and make disciples.
Yep.
And mentoring is how you can do that.
Yeah. It's pretty cool.
It is cool.
It's a great opportunity.
So what do we do with this?
So at least for this half of the conversation, if we're really focusing on what it's like to be a mentor, I think kind of leaning into that challenge is something that we can do. Whether it's just kind of processing like, where is my leadership right now? Let me identify where I might be, I might already have the opportunity there and I just don't realize it. Like,
yes.
Particularly if you're someone who is serving in kids or is serving in students or is serving on a team, like there are opportunities where you're surrounded by people where you can disciple them and bring them along, and you just might not be aware of it. Or you could be in a situation where you aren't around anybody yet that you can start to pour into. So identifying where you're at and what the next step of that is, I think is really, really important. And I think it can be really significantly simpler if you look through the lens of one person at a time.
Yes.
Just kind of simplify it for yourself. Find one person to identify and continue to pour into them, or pour into them for the first time and see how it goes.
Yeah, and I think one thing everybody could do is just to help identify that person is to just start praying. Like, God, show me the people that I may be overlooking. Show me the people that I may be missing, who I could work with. And if you're not in a place where you're surrounded by people, because that's not really your comfort zone, because that was most definitely mine, you might need to just put that aside, that discomfort at the thought, because that was something that I had to do. Just the thought of going to small group or serving literally made me nauseous. And
you're not the only one.
No, I know. But that led me to somewhere where I never would have thought that I would be. Really and so cool. you might just need to check that and say, God, I'm here. I'm seeking to do what you're wanting me to do. I know that you will see me through it. And get into a small group, start serving somewhere, even if it's not in a church, but I would encourage you to, but like in a volunteer place, anywhere where you can get connected and be around other people that are all seeking to make people's lives better. But it's going to take you being willing to get out there to do it.
Oh, absolutely.
And then once you feel that prompt of who it might be, say, hey, would you want to get together for coffee and talk about what's going on in your life right now, or whatever it might be.
Literally that simple.
And hey, what's going on? How are you doing?
Yeah.
And you have no idea where that could go.
Yeah, which is really cool.
It
is. A lot of opportunity there.
So, I love it. So I think we'll set it down there, and then we will pick up with the Elisha story in the next episode. So leave us a review, like, share, subscribe, all the things. It actually really does help. Mm-hmm. Leave us a review. We will send you an After Chat mug, and we will see you back here for another episode of the After Chat.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us for the After Chat. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review. To be the first to hear our next episode, Be sure to hit the subscribe button and get notifications for new content. You can also follow us on social media on Instagram at PCC Wired and Facebook at Passion Community Church. For additional resources and links, check out the description. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time on The After Chat.